Have you ever heard the phrase, the way you were loved is the way that you love? Well, you'll be surprised that there is some truth to this. And two psychologists in the 50s and 60s set out to prove this. And what they came up with are called attachment styles, or as I like to refer to them, as relationship styles. So, what attachment style theory does is it shows us the connection between how we were parented and how we show up in our relationships today. So you might wonder why you behave the way you behave in your relationships, why you do the things you do in your relationships. Well, the attachment style theory that these two psychologists came up with are called attachment styles, and there are four of them. And that explains this. Okay. So we're going to go through these four attachment styles and I'm hoping that you take notes and see if you can identify some of your own behaviors and traits and patterns in some of these styles. Okay. So the first attachment style is called a secure attachment style. And what this attachment style looks like is basically saying that as a child, you had caregivers that provided you with all of the support you needed emotionally and physically as you were growing up. It means that when you cried, there was someone there to console you. Someone talked to you. Someone cared for you. They provided for you. You felt secure in the environment that you grew up with. So therefore, as an adult, you're able to have healthy relationships with other people, that you know how to love, give love, and receive love in a very healthy way. It means that you have healthy self-esteem, meaning you don't have an overinflated view of yourself. You're not driven by your ego. And at the same time, you don't have a low-level view of yourself. You have a very healthy view of yourself, a very realistic view, because a realistic view is a healthy view. You know your strengths and weaknesses, but you own your strengths. You are aware of your weaknesses and you work on those. Okay. It also means that you seek out support. You have no problem saying you need help or you need guidance in a particular issue. It also means that you trust in relationships and you trust that your needs will be met. So, for example, when you're in a relationship with a partner and your partner says they want to go out and hang out with their friends, you're okay with that. You trust them to do what they say they're going to do until they prove you otherwise. You're comfortable with giving them the benefit of the doubt, and you're comfortable with giving them their space as needed. Okay. So that's what a secure attachment style looks like. The second one is a dismissive attachment style. Now, this attachment style is marked by a child that perhaps their caregivers were their attentions were elsewhere when the child was young. So it means that you may have grown up in an environment where maybe your caregivers worked very long hours. Maybe you were a latchkey kid for most of your childhood. And so therefore you were left to take care of yourself for the bulk of it. Your childhood. Perhaps they had a mental illness or an addiction or something else that consumed them. So they weren't able to give you what you needed, or they dismissed your needs. So therefore you had to grow up fast, right? You may see it, with this attachment style, you will see a child behave as a little grown up, a little adult, because they become independent. They have to take care of themselves. So because the child grew up with this type of attachment style, they may come across as though they're emotionally unavailable because they're just so, they've had to take care of themselves for so long, okay? And they don't know how to really connect to connect in that way with someone else. So there's a lot of fears there. There's a lot of insecurities there. Just being afraid that their needs are not going to get met again as they did in their childhood. They come across as they have very high self-esteem, right? But again, that's their shield because there's so many insecurities deep down inside. So that's their defense. That's their shield, is that overinflated self-esteem, to protect themselves from getting hurt. A lot of what they do is to protect themselves. They come across as cold and very heartless. Yet again, it's a defense mechanism. They're trying to protect themselves. They often seek isolation. They like to be alone because they're processing. They're still working it out. They're still processing their traumas from their childhood. So that's what the dismissive attachment style looks like. The next one is referred to as the anxious attachment style. And this one means that it's marked by inconsistent parenting. Okay. So perhaps you had a parent that would show up, maybe it was your father or your mother, and they would show up and then you wouldn't see them for weeks on end. Okay. Maybe they would be really, really strict and then really, really loving. Maybe they would make promises and commitments, but wouldn't follow through on those. Okay. So it's marked by a lot of inconsistencies and confusion. So when you have a person that grows up in that type of environment, guess what? You've created an insecure adult. And so having this level of insecurity, you don't trust your partners. You don't trust those that you're in relationship because you couldn't trust the people that you were supposed to trust the most, your caregivers. So this one, it shows up in adults as jealousy. Okay. So this partner is the one that checks the text messages. They scrolls through the phone, see who you've called. They check the social media to see what pictures you post up. If you say you want to go out, if the partner, I should say, says they want to go out and hang out with the friends, this attachment style does not trust that they're going to do that. So they come across as very clingy because they're saying, stay with me, be with me, because they're fearful. They're fearful of rejection that mommy and daddy or whoever their caregiver was gave them in the past. And because they're so fearful, they come across as that they're emotionally desperate. And because of that, it causes a lot of conflict. And you will see a pattern of tumultuous relationships, friendships, platonic relationships, dating relationships, romantic relationships, I should say, all end up tumultuous. It's a lot of drama. This person typically carries a lot of drama with them because that's the environment they grew up in. Okay. They want healthy relationships, but they don't know how to get them. And I'll tell you what's interesting. The anxious attachment style is typically attracted to a dismissive attachment style. Isn't that interesting? The one who's desperate for love attracts the person that's attracted to the person that's emotionally unavailable, right? But think about it. That's the anxious attachment style. That's what they've known. That's what they knew growing up, is someone that was emotionally unavailable. So that's what they attract. And the dismissive, they're attracted to the anxious attachment style because they want connection. They really do. And they see, here's this person. They really want to connect with me. They really want to bond with me. But the two of them have such unhealthy, toxic behaviors that they clash. They argue, they fight, they do all of the drama all day long. Okay. I will tell you, thank goodness, I'm recovered from the anxious attachment style. So I know it all too well. And I'm telling you today, there is help. There are ways that you can recover if you have these negative attachment styles. Okay. So the last one, fearful avoidant attachment style. This one is marked by a childhood that is filled with lots of trauma. Perhaps the caregiver abandoned them. Perhaps the caregiver was abusive towards them physically, emotionally, mentally. This childhood has a lot of toxicity into it. So you have an adult that hasn't healed from this. So they act out. The simplest thing causes them to act out. Their behavior is erratic. And you don't know, you can't pinpoint it. You don't know what they're going to do. And sometimes you feel like you're walking on eggshells around the fearful avoidant because their behavior is just anything can set them off. But see, what's happening is they're acting out on their childhood trauma. They're still in pain. They're still hurting. They're still in fear for their life. So anything, that's their defense mechanism. Anything can set them off and they haven't learned skills. This is probably behavior that they saw in their home, a lot of fighting, a lot of arguing. So they haven't learned healthy skills, how to deal with conflict, okay? And those hurts are there, and those hurts, it is in the most innocent of ways that those hurts can manifest themselves. They sabotage their relationships. They do that out of fear, out of the pain. They expect someone to reject them. They expect someone to disappoint them. So they're always accusing. They're always blaming. You're going to do this. You did this. You did this. And they lash out in a very disrespectful manner. They disrespect the people that they love and that love them the most. They have a very negative view of themselves. Deep down inside, they may come across to you as they have, decent self-esteem. But once you start to really peel back those layers, you really see that there's a lot of hurts there, and there's a child in there that has not healed, okay? So now that we've gone over those, I want you to think about which of these are your attachment styles. And I want you to take the test. Right under this, there's a test to determine what your attachment style is. So I want you to think about it, process it, take the test. Then after you take the test, I really want you to listen to the next clip on how to heal attachment styles. It's one thing to understand it, but then we have to take the next step to heal it, okay? And I'll see you in the next clip.